who was the best of all time.
Vous voyez là avec notre ami Jean-Claude Van Varenberg, est conseiller technique au service des élites à la DEPS. Il est 6e dan et il prépare l'équipe championne de Belgique.
Maynard, you're worth $200 to me, dead or alive.
Bounty hunter.
You can back to St. Louis with me and hang, or go for your gun now.
Maybe I'm the one who needs some advice.
You just go for your gun. That's a chance you wouldn't get with a hangman.
Where would the action genre be without westerns? I can't say I'm a huge fan of the genre myself, but maybe I just haven't seen enough of them. I've gathered here a list of my 12 favorites, which spans several decades and several styles. I tend to like different types of movies, so I wouldn't expect a lot of the so-called classics to appear here. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a list full of John Ford films. Number 12. John Ford's Stagecoach. Okay, I know what I just said, but hear me out. This is one of the few films I've ever seen that lives up to its reputation. This was Ford's first big sound western, and he really does the genre a service by making one of the best ever made. It's also the movie that made John Wayne a star, though the real star here is Claire Trevor. Naturally, John Wayne steals the show as the possibly dangerous but ultimately a nice guy outlaw character Ringo the Kid. Wayne had been stuck doing B-pictures for the decade since his feature debut. The surprisingly engaging widescreen epic The Big Trail flopped at the box office. But it kind of worked out because Wayne became more known for these little action movies full of stunts, fights, gun battles, and chase scenes. When Wayne finally got the chance to do a big movie like this, he brought all of that baggage with him, and it really shows during the final big gunfight / chase scene. The movie is gorgeously shot, even for black and white, and does a fantastic job building to the famous climax, which is tense and amazingly shot as well. Sometimes, due to a film's age, we can forget just how dark and edgy the subject matter can get. A stark reminder of this is when John Carradine's character finds the stripped corpse of a woman at an outpost. Fearing the same fate for one of the female passengers on their stagecoach, a recent mother, he makes a harsh decision. In fact, much of the movie is far more edgy than you'd think. It makes for great viewing even now. One thing I noticed, and can't help but think was intentional, is the particular manner of Wayne's introduction to the movie. As I said, Wayne had spent the decade making what would now amount to doing DTV films.
Make it fast, Slippery. This is your last draw.
In many of these, Wayne was accompanied by this big white horse named Duke, who would often get his own title card. This started around Ride 'em Cowboy, where we saw how he got the horse, and well on throughout the years. The two shared many adventures, and sometimes Duke would save Wayne from certain danger, and even once stomped a dude to death. Now, for extra points, who remembers how Wayne's character Ringo was introduced in Stagecoach?
Hold it!
Oh, steady.
No. Lame horse.
That's right. John Wayne killed Duke. Take it as a metaphor for him leaving behind those B pictures, or maybe it was unintentional altogether. But do you really remember ever seeing Duke again? Number 11. Django II, also known as Django Strikes Again. So here's where I expect some controversy to begin. Yes, I actually prefer this one to the original Corbucci film. There's just a lot more going on here. Where the original Django was more about a former Union soldier using the vengeful gunslinger motif to mask his true intentions, robbery, Django II takes place years later and has the titular character, now having gone all Rambo 3 and living the life of a monk, having to return to his violent ways in order to rescue his long-lost child. There's a greater focus on developing the Django mythos here, which, while I guess is somewhat standard for a sequel, really gives the movie some edge. Along those lines, we also explore themes of race and power here. The effects are mixed, but I think it's kind of a welcome addition. The direction is nowhere near as artful as in the first film, but it kind of gives the movie a charming cheapness, which I can only really compare to the 70s exploitation films. Most importantly, however, is the action. It's somewhat cheap, but by the time Django does a one-man raid into an enemy encampment, Predator style, I forgot all about the production values. I'm glad Franco Nero came back for this one. It feels a bit like the final movie in a trilogy, but it's an excellent one at that. Long before Jackie Chan teamed up with Owen Wilson for the enjoyable but cinematic equivalent to junk food that was Shanghai Noon, there was Soleil Rouge, aka Red Sun. This film is an East meets West kind of western starring Toshiro Mifune, one of the Seven Samurai, and Charles Bronson, one of the Magnificent Seven. Awesome. We get plenty of variety here, all stuff that was sort of retread in Shanghai Noon. We get fights, gunfights, and our Asian lead even battles some Native Americans. Ellen Delon is our lead baddie here, and we get a little bit of sexy here with Bond girl Ursula Andress. It was kind of tough for me to track this one down, but it was well worth it.
I thought you didn't know the language.
Did I say that?
No, but you never talked.
I've never been terribly into westerns, to be honest, but I understand a lot of the appeal for someone like John Wayne. After his breakout, as he became a bigger star, he was able to get projects made that he wanted to with all the message he wanted in them. And I get a kick out of seeing him pontificate and gush poetically and politically over how he sees the world.
Republic. I like the sound of the word. Means people can live free, talk free, go or come, buy or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose. Some words give you a feeling. Republic is one of those words that makes me tight in the throat. Same tightness a man gets when his baby takes his first step, or his first baby shaves and makes his first sound like a man.
Rio Bravo is John Wayne's reaction to High Noon. Now, High Noon is recognized as a genre classic, though at the time of its release and since, some have seen it as a metaphor for how many, especially in Hollywood, remain silent as the anti-communist movement, now known as McCarthyism, swept through the country. John Wayne himself called High Noon the most un-American thing he'd ever seen. Well, a few years later, he'd issue his response in the form of Rio Bravo. The movie outlines a similar plot to High Noon, though with intentional differences. Like Cooperstown is mistrustful and fearful, and Waynestown is a friendly and supportive place. Well, for the most part. In High Noon, Gary Cooper asks for and is refused all assistance. And in Rio Bravo, John Wayne openly refuses any assistance.
Stay out, we don't need you.
Also, the Dimitri Tompkins score is amazing. Director Howard Hawks basically remade the film a few years later in El Dorado, again with John Wayne. It's a better, more fleshed out film in a lot of ways, but I'll always prefer the original. The gunfights look fast and ferocious, and Wayne really throws himself into the action.
You want that gun, pick it up. I wish you would.
Oh, this is a 7-shot 6-shooter.
You know who else is back? Franco Nero. Keoma. This time he plays a half-breed native with a mysteriously Italian-sounding accent.
You'll pay, don't worry. And my price is high.
Silliness aside, I love the way this is shot, and I think it has a successful mixture of realistic and spiritual elements, which separates it from most other westerns. I guess you could compare this one to something like Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, or maybe more accurately something like High Plains Drifter. Though I definitely prefer this one. It was directed by Enzo Castellari, who had worked with Franco Nero on Street Law, which itself was kind of an interesting take on the Death Wish formula.
It's a question of self-respect. If I find them, I kill them.
As I said, I love how this is shot. Castellari shoots his movies very well, utilizing perspective and slow motion in interesting and creative ways to elevate the whole movie. He makes the fantastic fantastical. He also brought along the composer-brother duo Guido and Maurizio De Angelis from Street Law, who bring a certain flair to the music. But to cut to the chase, it's really the gunfights that pique my interest. They go a long ways in making this one a personal favorite. I'm always glad when Woody Strode gets a little role as well.
It's good to be back.
The Outlaw Juicy Whales. You might have noticed I tend to prefer my films to have a high body count in them. Well, check out how this movie opens, when Clint gets a Gatling gun. I'm gonna get blasphemous and admit I prefer this to any of the Man with No Name movies.
Well, you're gonna pull those pistols and whistle Dixie.
It may lack the style and presentation of each of them, but Clint goes a long way in selling it.
I'm looking for Josie Wales.
That'll be me.
The Searchers. This is one of the most exquisitely shot movies I've ever seen. The final shot still gives me goosebumps. There's this great thanks but no thanks quality there. I've always found that John Wayne is at his best when exploring his dark side, like in Red River.
All right, anybody else? Say it now, because I don't want to ever hear it again. I don't like quitters, especially when they're not good enough to finish what they start. Now go on, speak up. Say it and you can join your friends here.
And here, Wayne is gloriously dark.
Leave them carry off their hurt and dead.
Well, Reverend, that tears it. No, and you stay out of this. All of you. I don't want you with me. I don't need you for what I gotta do.
He plays one of his meanest and most ruthless roles ever. He's a racist, violent outcast who has made it his sole life mission to retrieve Natalie Wood from the clutches of the evil natives who took her. I love the way the movie slowly reveals Wayne's true purpose here as well.
Why don't you finish the job?
What good did that do you?
Why, what you preach, none. But what that Comanche believes, ain't got no eyes, he can't enter the spirit land. Has to wander forever between the winds. You get it, Reverend.
Now, I do think it kind of wimps out on the ending, but it redeems itself with that final image. Unforgiven. This is the ultimate Clint Eastwood Western. Like John Wayne's The Shootist, Unforgiven plays on Eastwood's own image. In fact, you could easily look at this as a sort of long-lost sequel to the Man with No Name trilogy. And if you really wanted to stretch it, you could include films like Pale Rider and High Plains Drifter in there as well. Eastwood's aging former outlaw character is given complexity and moral ambiguity, usually not seen outside the noir genre, and the reversal of who's good and who's portrayed as a villain in this film makes everything miles more interesting than your standard Western. We get the sheriff trying to keep order and peace in his town, but they corrupt that image here with Gene Hackman coming off more cruel and savage than noble. Death is shown as a nasty process, gunfighter mythology is twisted until it seems broken, but then the movie switches gears right at the end and enshrines Clint again as this impossible badass.
Any man don't want to get killed. Better clear on out the back.
To be respected and to be feared.
Any man I see out there, I'm gonna kill him. Any son of a bitch takes a shot at me, not only gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill his wife, all his friends, burn his damn house down.
This is a movie that seemingly does everything right. From its pitch-perfect casting, to the music, to the cinematography. This movie is why people should love Westerns.
Was you ever scared in them days?
I can't remember.
Tombstone. Tombstone is, next to Predator, one of the manliest movies ever made.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Kurt Russell, Sam Shepard, Powers Booth, the vastly underrated Michael Biehn, and the movie's MVP Val Kilmer chew up all the scenery and spit it out as weather-beaten, sun-drenched testosterone.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
What at first might seem as a violent and overpopulated Western is quickly revealed to be the action movie genre's tribute to a Western. From Robert Mitchum's narration, Harry Carey Jr.'s small role, to Charlton Heston's cameo, to the awesome gunfights, this is a movie with balls and impact. Oh, and those one-liners.
I want your blood. I want your soul.
I said throw down, boy.
You're probably seeing double.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Tombstone was a movie made in direct competition to another film about Wyatt Earp, one starring Kevin Costner in the titular role. While I always appreciate Costner's takes on the Western genre, Tombstone is just too fun, and not to mention a whole hour shorter and better paced. Plus, Dennis Quaid is great and all, but Kilmer's Doc Holliday is simply legendary.
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.
I remember Don Siegel got in trouble when he was doing a film called The Shootist some years later, and he was working with John Wayne. The villain sneaks around the room, and John Wayne comes up behind him, and he says, "Then just shoot him." And he said, there's a long pause, and he said, John Wayne said, "You mean I shoot him in the back?" And he says, yeah, you shoot him, just shoot him, get rid of him, because you got 4 other guys. And he says, "I don't shoot anyone in the back." And Don made a terrible error. He said, Clint Eastwood would have shot him in the back. And he said, Wayne turned blue. You see? And he said, "I don't care what that kid would have done. I don't shoot him in the back."
I want to talk a little bit about some films that won't be on this list. Not because they're bad, but because I didn't think they worked for me. These are the runner-ups. Django Unchained. I caught this one a couple times in the theater and absolutely loved it. I think Tarantino keeps getting better and better. That said, I feel the material is too fresh in my mind for me to give it an honest take just yet. Dances with Wolves. Another one I love. Kevin Costner makes a true classic here, and though it's 4 hours long, it never feels like a chore to me. However, I think of Dances with Wolves as more of a period drama than a Western, so I don't really count it. The Good, the Bad, the Weird. I love Ji Woon Kim. And this is a very fun take on the Western. It takes some of the best bits from Leone's classics and pumps up everything with adrenaline, making for an incredibly fun romp. The final race to the treasure is amazing. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, I brought up Leone, so I might as well mention the big one.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
I love Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, and the rest, but I just prefer some of their other movies to this one. I think it's great and all, but it's just not one of my personal favorites. True Grit, the original John Wayne version. Let's get this out of the way. I like this version a lot better than the remake. I think the remake is good too, but it's basically the same movie minus John Wayne's already great performance and plus more depressing stuff. The Wild Bunch. Not to sound too controversial here, but I don't think this is such a great movie. Still, I like the performances and I like the themes. But what I really like is that final epic gunfight. Why more movies still aren't trying to top this, I don't know. And now, the final three. Millionaire's Express. Or as my copy is called, Shanghai Express. I guess since it's set in China, it could be called an Eastern? Anyway, this is what you might call a kitchen sink film. It has everything. We get our Western type setting, we get a bounty hunter, bandits, a newly appointed sheriff, Civil War regalia, a steam train, a brothel, etc. But they also throw in martial arts, samurai swordsmen, slapstick comedy, massive gunfights, preposterous stunts, a cameo by Bolo Young, and so much more. This is just a great time. It was directed by its main star Sammo Hung, and his fight scenes with Yuen Biao are some of the best ever filmed. Hung gives this movie a lot of energy and allows all the many, many characters time to shine.
Hi.
It's incredible this film is even watchable with so much going on. That being said, supposedly there's another 15 to 20 minutes they cut out before releasing it for time. I'd kill to get my hands on a version with those put back in. Last Man Standing. I think Yojimbo is pretty much a perfect film. I love the hell out of it. But I like Last Man Standing better. Yes, even better than the A Fistful of Dollars version. Bruce Willis is just so badass here.
I guess maybe you'll have to kill me. It'll hurt if I do.
And though he doesn't really carry any of the little quirks that made Mifune's Yojimbo so neat to watch, there's a smoldering power behind his quiet smoothness that I think works for an update of the character. But that's how they turn this into this. Man, those gunfights.
One.
Once Upon a Time in the West. I'm not sure how to talk about this film. It's great on every level. Sergio Leone really knocked it out of the park here. So many fully fleshed out characters, and each one just brilliantly written and perfectly portrayed. Grand, sweeping, beautiful music by the great Ennio Morricone, which include these great leitmotifs for each of the characters. Also, in true Leone fashion, the gunfights are quick and precise after being built by heavy suspense. They snap quick as lightning, loud as thunder, and everyone is a badass. But no one compares to Charles Bronson.
Looks like we're shy of one horse.
You brought two too many.
He's like a walking ghost who refuses to disappear, even when you look away.
Only watch those false notes.
Like so?
But you know nothing about him. It all seems so typically Western, but then they give you this great reveal. Just thinking about it gives me chills. Well, that's the list, guys. If you can think of any other films that you think I should watch, let me know. I'll probably make another video talking about those. Until next time.